fact, in previous lessons, I've talked a lot about this secret sauce position that you often see or hear in bluegrass music. It's the way that we kick off songs on a guitar. Kind of what I played there at the beginning. But I have to admit that this is really not a secret position at all. This is basically just another way of playing a G chord, all right? So in this quick exercise, I'm gonna break down some tips and tricks. But what you see on your screen here is both the chords that I'm playing over and the Nashville number system. Now, in the realm of bluegrass music, it's important to understand what chords you're playing, but you do want to get familiar with this number system because this is how bluegrass musicians will often communicate with numbers and not chords. And I can get into that in other lessons, but in this lesson, we're just focusing on this intro lick. Let's hear it one more time before I get into it. Take a listen. By the way, guys, if you want to support the channel, just use this link for the Strum Machine app, and I can even send you these exercises. Just leave a comment below. On your screen there, you've noticed that I put a little swing, and what that does for me is it kind of teaches my ear to play more rhythmically, okay? So I've got all the instruments turned on here, a bass guitar and a mandolin, but the guitar is going to sort of feed how my playing should be. And this is important because, you know, it's just like when you're singing and playing at the same time, you have to play a certain rhythm. And in bluegrass music, it's important to sort of get this rhythm down. And I'm talking a lot about your right hand, okay? So this is what I'm getting to. And so that brings me to the first sort of takeaway from this lesson. You're going to hear this intro lick, which I played at the beginning, played so many times in the world of bluegrass, and it's always going to sound a little bit different based on who's playing it, how advanced they are, and just sort of their own rhythm and spice. And so, like I said, the first takeaway is to just practice that over that G chord, all right? And you don't have to get it right every time. Let me slow down the video and let me play that one part. You can kind of hear what my hand is doing, all right? And pay attention because this is hard for me to do. But as I was practicing that intro, I was really trying to focus on the movement of my right hand. And so as you're watching it, just make sure that a couple things, this is all gonna be in your wrist, and you need to sort of find a place to plant the palm of your wrist somewhere around the saddle of the guitar, because that's going to give you more control. You think of it as almost like a fulcrum on a pivot point, and the faster that we can get over time moving that pivot point, the faster our playing is going to be. And guys, like, I'm going back and learning a lot of this and learning how to teach it to you guys, and so really I'm throwing myself on screen just because I'm relearning this stuff too. So if you're into that sort of thing, subscribe to the channel because I'm not holding much back, all right? But that's what we're trying to do, and really just focus. I've spent a lot of time just focusing on that wrist, all right? And trust me, I had to play that intro about 100 times before I was satisfied with it. But it's all in like your wrist, and you're trying to not strum through everything. That's important. Because I think a lot of new players have a tendency to just move through everything, and it's hard to really get control over your right hand to where you're plucking the strings, and only the strings that you want plucked, all right? So that's the first takeaway. And the second one is quite simple. I want to talk about a C chord because we're playing over that C chord in the intro, and I want you to go back, let's play that again, and let's see what exactly I am doing that makes it sound a little twangy, all right? Let's listen again. Okay, so first off, I am playing or alternating my root notes. In the key of C, you might Google an image and you see this chord, and that is a C chord. But remember, in bluegrass music, we want to alternate between our root notes. And to not get in depth on what exactly that means, how we do it when we're playing a C chord is we've got our pinky on the C chord, on the C note there on the A string, and also our ring fingers there on the low E string, and we play those alternating those root notes it'll sound like that, okay? And what I'm doing here between the C and the D note, this is important. I admit this is something that I don't do as much as I probably should with bluegrass, but it's a simple sort of, got the simplest run, if you will. Not that I know if you call it that, but basically before you make that switch, before you go from C to your D, that's rough, but you're going right there, just sliding up on your pinky finger right before you move to that D chord. And I talk about this in other videos, but bluegrass licks, bluegrass music, it's all musically, you're flattening and sharpening notes, right? And that's just another way of doing it. It's pretty simple in its basic form. Executing it in time with the right rhythm is what takes practice. But that's the gist of it. So you see players do that all the time. It's like a heavy, be like, right? Or something like that. And that's what they're doing. It's just a simple movement to that D chord, all right? And then if you peel bluegrass music apart deeper, it's just a lot of these micro movements that really give it that bluegrassy sound, all right? And so another one, again, on my D chord there in this exercise, I'm alternating between that D note and that A note, or trying my best to every time I'm strumming a D chord period. That's sort of how your mind needs to think. And then I'm using my pointer finger here, and I do this a lot in my playing. In other videos, I'm not sure if like other players use this transition as I do as much or as frequently. But what I'm doing here is pulling off on that A string on the 2nd fret, right? So, and that's how I get to that G chord, and then I'm finishing up with that G run, all right? And I've done lessons on that. I keep saying I need to refresh videos to teach you different styles. But that's the gist of it, right? So just to quickly recap on this lesson, we're focusing on sort of getting our rhythm down in the first part of the lick. Second part of the lick is just sort of nuances of how to make this sound more bluegrassy. But again, more importantly than this hammer on here is just getting that rhythm down, getting the idea that learn sort of how your muscles feel as you're doing that, kind of be aware of what's happening in your wrist when you get the rhythm that you are wanting, the sound that you want. At least that's the way I think of it. When I finally play the lick right or whatever I'm trying to play right, I'll often look at this hand and make note, because this is, you know, a big part of it too. It's not just in my left hand, and just sort of see what I'm doing and be aware that I have to mimic that the next time that I sit down and practice this exercise, all right? Other than that, guys, if you need help with anything else, just let me know below, and I'll see you next time. Adios.